Let me tell you something, because if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I would have sworn my days of drama and high stakes were over. The house at the end of the cul-de-sac was my last stop, my retreat after 2 decades on the force, years spent scraping my way up from street cop in the worst neighborhoods to the big office with my name on the door. All I wanted was peace. My wife, God rest her, dreamed of a quiet spot where you could actually hear the leaves move, where the only real excitement was a squirrel in the yard or maybe a lost Amazon package. She picked this place with me before she passed, a plain brick ranch that was way too big for just one guy, but every corner still felt full because it held something of her. The laughter, the arguments, the little traditions you build without even realizing it until suddenly you're sitting alone with a cup of cold coffee and the weight of all those memories pressing down on you. For a while, that silence felt sacred, you know? I'd come home, drop the badge, let the tension bleed out, and finally just breathe, just be a man in his house. That was my little slice of peace. Of course, it didn't last, because trouble never knocks, it just slips a note under your windshield wiper. First sign? The woman next door, brittle and blonde, face like she'd smelled something bad for 20 years straight. She never learned my name, never cared to. To her, I was just the guy who moved into the old Henderson place. First note, her handwriting, cream paper, complained my trash cans were 3 inches off the line. The next week, another note, this time about the grass, a 1/4 inch too tall. These were little power moves, her way of letting me know there was a pecking order in her precious suburb, and I didn't belong. I recognized the type, never about the cans or the lawn, always about control. I could have laughed, but honestly, I had real problems. The city was dealing with a wave of high-tech car thefts, whole rings of kids making 6-figure vehicles vanish in under a minute, and the mayor wanted answers. So no, your note about grass didn't register, ma'am. Then her son came home from college, a carbon copy of her, only cockier, bleach blonde hair, always revving this obnoxious yellow sports car at all hours. He and his crew left beer bottles on my lawn, their laughter spilling into the night. I figured, whatever, just kids being stupid. I picked up the bottles, recycled them, moved on. I tried to believe it was all innocent. That's how you keep the peace, right? But peace, it turns out, has a price. And my neighbors seemed intent on making sure I paid it. The last straw came one Tuesday. I'd taken a rare day off, real time off. No calls, no emergencies, just me, the couch, a pepperoni pizza, and a bad action movie. I'd barely let my guard down when the doorbell started going off like someone was trying to wake the dead. Not a friendly knock, but the aggressive kind, like a warning shot. I get up, open the door, and there he is, the prince of the cul-de-sac, his girlfriend standing behind him, looking nervous as a rabbit at a dog show. He's dressed like he owns a yacht, eyeing my tank top and sweatpants like he's offended by the very sight of me eating pizza in my own house. He comes right out with it. We need to talk. His little speech was so rehearsed, it almost made me laugh. But he wasn't here for small talk. He wanted my house, he and his girlfriend, looking for a fresh start. When I told him to try the realtor's office downtown, he didn't miss a beat. "You're not getting it," he said, stepping into my space, voice trembling with entitlement. "This is a good neighborhood, and frankly, your kind just lowers the tone. I'll give you a week to pack and go." Yeah, he said it out loud, the kind of thing people whisper after a few too many drinks, but he wanted me to know exactly how little he thought of me. For a second, I felt the old anger spark, the same heat I used to feel facing down a knife in an alleyway. But training kicks in, you go cold, you focus. I stared at the kid, at his fancy watch, at the girlfriend gripping her purse like a life preserver, and just said, "Get off my property." He tried to regain his swagger, threatening, promising things would get uncomfortable if I didn't leave. I watched him drag the girl away, already plotting my next move. This wasn't just about neighborhood drama now. He declared war. And the funny thing about wars, I'd won more than I could remember, while this kid hadn't even started shaving when I was already walking a beat. I wanted to bury him in paperwork, call in every favor. But I'd spent my career steering clear of that kind of vendetta. If I was going to beat him, it had to be by the book. So I started thinking like an investigator again. Why so sure of himself? Why the endless cash, fancy watch, designer purse, limited edition car? I started pulling at threads, searching online, digging into public records, running the kid's car, the brands, the girlfriend's bag. The more I found, the clearer it got. He was either the world's luckiest college kid, or he had something to hide. When I checked social media, it was like watching a highlight reel for the Phantom Ring, the car theft crew we'd been chasing for months. Pictures of him with cars we'd marked as stolen, always one step ahead. Turns out his name was on the list of a hacker we busted last year, $5 grand for software, probably the code to clone key fobs. That's when the Real investigation kicked in. Harding, my sharpest detective, dug deep, background, friends, crypto trails. We set up surveillance, watched the crew, mapped out the money. And at home, it got worse. The mother started a campaign, HOE violations, city complaints, gossip. I was painted as the outsider, the threat. The irony? Her kid was the criminal mastermind. Every night I'd sit in my living room, watching the yellow sports car pull in next door, watching him shove his girlfriend, jawing at her, treating her like property. I wanted to step in, but if I did, the whole investigation could collapse. So I waited, gathering evidence, hating every second. The twist, the girlfriend wasn't just a sidekick, she was trapped. Coerced by the kid, her family tied up in a secret, a hit and run covered up by his money and connections. She was bound to him by fear and gratitude. When we finally brought her in, gave her a way out, she spilled everything, how he was running the theft ring, the code, the logistics, the payoffs to the port manager who loaded stolen cars into ghost containers bound for Europe. She told us about the next big heist, supercars worth millions. We prepared everything, sealed warrants, trackers, surveillance, the whole SWAT team on standby. The night of the heist, I sat in the command van watching it all play out, silent, clinical, but inside I was burning. When the trap closed, it was over in 90 seconds. SWAT blocked every exit. The kid tried to ram his way out, but ended up face down on the hood of his precious car. I walked up, let him see exactly who'd beaten him, whispered, "You wanted my house? You should know the city's got housing for felons." That was it. The aftermath? Media circus, sure. His mom tried to spin it, said I had a vendetta. But the truth was too strong. Surveillance, evidence, even the girlfriend's testimony under witness protection. The whole family fell, her, the dad, the councilman, the whole rotten system. The yellow sports car got auctioned off, the HOA collapsed, and for the first time in years, the neighborhood was actually quiet. A few months later, sitting on the same couch, eating pizza, I watched a young couple move in next door. They thanked me for my service, didn't know the story, and that was just fine. I looked out at my yard, at the street I'd fought to keep decent, and finally felt the peace I'd earned. Sometimes the one they try hardest to push out is the only one willing to clean up the mess, and, you know what? That pizza never tasted better. So what do you think, was justice served? Or is there more to a good neighborhood than just who gets to stay? Tell me below. Where do you draw the line between fighting back and letting things go? If you've ever felt pushed out or stood your ground when it mattered, I want to hear your story. Drop a comment. Let's talk about what justice looks like in your neighborhood and whether peace is worth fighting for.